with another segment with the call to be different. I am honored this afternoon to interview author Scott Smith on his new book, The 10 Secrets to Detaching from Toxic People, Living Your Best Life. So we're just going to go over a few questions that I have for him pertaining his book, and he's going to go in depth on why he wrote the book, and then just encouraging those that have been in toxic relationships, toxic churches, toxic families, just to encourage them that you can find ways within this book to become better when it comes to toxic relationships. We all have been there. If you haven't, God bless you, you're on the right road. But to some extent, we're just going to go through this book and ask Scott some questions, and we're going to go from there. So thank you for joining us. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes. My name is Scott Smith. I'm from here in Columbus, Ohio. I'm an author. This is my second book. And me and George, we go way back. We've known each other for some years. And I'm just excited to be able to talk about this book. I think it's going to impact a lot of people. And I think that it really hit my heart because I got to interview people that went through real issues, and I got to put that information in here through like interviews and things. So I think this one is really going to be impactful when people read it, as far as detaching from toxic situations in their life.
Wonderful. So after reading this book, how can one person identify whether he or her is toxic?
To be honest with you, there's 5 questions. There's 5 questions that I came up with, and there's multiple ways for like people to identify. Like you said, who's toxic? Mm-hmm. One of the questions I think you have to ask is this person adding more? Is there more peace when I'm around this individual, or is there more stress when I'm around this individual? Like when they're not around, do I feel more at peace, or when they're around, do I feel like there's more tension? Like you have to read yourself, you have to know yourself. Like why do you feel like your self-esteem is less when they're around versus if they're not around? You gotta look at little hints like that. And you gotta ask yourself, are people like adding value to you, or are they detracting from you? So toxic, whenever there's something toxic, it causes decay. Whenever there's decay, that means something's breaking down, it's not stable. So like, are you more mentally stable around the individual, emotionally stable, or are you less stable? So I think knowing yourself helps you. If you don't know yourself, then you're going to be ignorant or naive when you're attached to someone that's toxic, basically. You know, are you a better person since you met the individual, or are you a less version of yourself? Are you a worse version of yourself? So you have to be honest with you. Be honest with yourself.
And that's good, because we don't understand sometimes that we're toxic until we're out the relationship, and sometimes it can be too late. Because I can give a testimony that being in relationships, I found myself from one relationship to another carrying toxicity from one relationship to another, but until I was out of it, I then soon realized that I was the one being toxic. And I think this book will help you understand or guide you to the life of freedom of being not toxic.
Right.
Because you hear a lot of people saying, even when it pertains to COVID, my mom is toxic, my dad is toxic, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my wife, my grandmother. But we have to understand too, we have an accountability for ourselves, that we need to look at the man in the mirror ourselves. So how can, if a person said today, hey Scott, hey George, I feel like I'm toxic, in your book, what chapters stick out to you most that will help them better themselves?
That's funny, because the book is entitled 10 Secrets to Detaching from Toxic People. But the thing is, what if you're the toxic one?
Right.
Are you going to detach from yourself?
Right.
So that's the thing right there. If you have to be honest with yourself, because there's a term, and it's in a book, it's called reactionary toxicity. Basically, that's me triggering the toxicity in you. So I know your triggers, I trigger it, your reaction becomes toxic to me, but I'm the one that triggered the reaction. So you're reacting to the trigger that I triggered in you, reactionary toxicity. So sometimes that's a toxic trait within us. We trigger the toxicity in other people. So we have to be mindful of how we engage people so we're not triggering toxic behavior in somebody. Like if I know you don't like when I talk to you like this, or behave like this, or do this, and I knowingly do this and do this, and your reaction is toxic towards me, then where's the accountability fall? With you, with me, with both of us. So I think that's where the honesty comes in. Like, am I triggering the toxicity in this individual? Am I engaging you so that we can have the best interaction? Or am I engaging you to the point where there's a toxic engagement between us? So I think it's a two-way street, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. Sometimes it's like I just was referring to, sometimes it's us. It's not the other person. And so I think when it comes to learning about yourself and learning about your toxic traits, sometimes you need to stop blaming other people and look at the man in the mirror. I believe Michael Jackson said it best. I can't find any other artist that made it plain and simple. He said, start with the man in the mirror. And until you do that, you'll blame your mom, your dad, your boss, your past 7 to 8 different life partners, this, that, and the other. Divorced 100 times. Instead, take some words of wisdom from us this afternoon and start with the man in the mirror. So I believe chapter 3 of your book talks about you being on the fence about having a relationship with your father. And we've talked about this. We've done panel discussions about growing up without a father. That's actually on YouTube. If you look it up, me and Scott, Keandra, and Pastor Xavier Small, we did almost a series about growing up without a father. And so you mentioned you being on the fence about continuing a relationship with him because of some of the toxic traits that he brought in your relationship. How did you navigate through finally one day building a relationship with him?
To be honest with you, it's like a roller coaster. I'm not where I used to be in my relationship with him, but I'm not where I want to be yet. So it's like a transition there. But one thing I'm realizing is, like, if I don't reach out to him, then it's rare if I hear from him.
Okay.
So my struggle is, do we both value the relationship? Or is it just, if I reach out to him, I hear from him. If I don't, then I don't hear from him. Is that a healthy relationship? When both people don't want it the same, I think that's where you have so it's like, that's where there's a struggle, I think, you know? Because it's like, wait, if I'm the initiator, then okay. But me, I love to be contacted also. I love to be checked on also, you know? So you have that, like, internal struggle. Like, you feel like, wait, if he was contacting me all the time, and I was contacting him a couple times a year, it's like, wait, if he's carrying 80% of this, putting 80% of effort in, and I'm only putting in 20%, is that a healthy relationship, you know? So my mindset is, if we each put in 100%, then you have a win-win, not 50-50, because that means we're both leaving 50 out of it. So that's my struggle. We're not in a place where I want us to be, but you know, that's where it definitely takes effort on both sides, I would say.
Yeah. So what if somebody is watching this today and they're like, I'm struggling dealing with a toxic parent. They're negative, emotionally abusive, this, that, and the other. How can they find help in your book to navigate through some of those issues or problems?
Toxic parent. Wow, that
may be a whole nother book.
Yeah. First of all, you have to ask yourself, do you love your parent enough to salvage the relationship? Because if you can't answer yes to that, it's going to take you down a whole new road. So do you value the relationship enough to save the relationship? People have to answer that question first. Now, if the answer is yes, what am I going to sacrifice to make this relationship work? Not what are they going to sacrifice, what are they going to give? No, what am I going to sacrifice to make sure this is a viable, a strong relationship instead of a toxic, dysfunctional relationship, you know? Sometimes we tolerate people. We don't necessarily love them or like them, but we tolerate them. So you gotta ask yourself, like, am I tolerating my parents or do I really love them? Because there's a difference between liking me and tolerating me. Loving me and tolerating me, there's a big difference. And we got to be honest with ourselves, because people can sense that. I can sense whether you're tolerating me or whether you truly like me, or if there's genuine love there. Like, I can sense that. And that causes friction. It causes issues. Because you're not going to treat me the same way that you treat someone that you truly like or love versus someone that you're just tolerating. So yeah, that
makes perfect sense. So in this book, 10 Secrets to Detaching from Toxic People, Living Your Best Life, what would you say, from an author standpoint, what was your favorite favorite chapter in the book?
That's hard, but I would have to probably say detaching spiritually, because that's something that's consistently worked for me. You know, God detach, sever, remove anything that's attached to me that shouldn't be, that I know, that I don't know. It's attached to me emotionally, mentally, spiritually. God detach it to the point that it can't reattach itself to my atmosphere, to my life. I love that prayer of severance, or a prayer of detachment, I guess you can say, because you got someone greater than you that's detaching things from you. So it's bigger than me. Like, I can walk away from you right now and detach myself from this physical engagement, you know, and walk over there. But what about something that's attached to you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that's toxic, that you don't know, and you're saying, God, I need you to remove this. I need you to take it out of me, get it out of my atmosphere. So I think that's one of the most powerful, chapter 6, I believe.
Yes. Yep. Detaching spiritually, secret number 5.
Yeah. So, because I apply that in my daily walk. You know, that's something that, So it is.
That's good. And
sometimes stuff's attached to you that you don't know is attached to you, and you're wondering, like, why am I so frustrated or irritated? And
so true. And it's important that, you know, you have to take the time. Even going through this book, reading it myself, I had to really sit down and stop at every chapter and realize where I was at in my walk, and dealing with some of the toxic traits that I have been dealt with over the years, and even still working, you know, through some of those toxic traits. I'm not perfect. He's not perfect. Our videographer is not perfect, but we're all just trying to. He may be our videographer. He may be. Hopefully, this video is perfect for all of our enrichment. But we have to understand that it's just a day-by-day walk with God, and you just have to sometimes help yourself. And I think what's important, talking about 10 secrets detaching from toxic people, secret number 3, chapter number 4, talks about detaching from physical, intimate presence. And it's very important as we begin, as we further this conversation, sometimes you wanting just to be around somebody. You can't live without this individual. Maybe you're saying that the way they talk to you, or the way they smell, or, you know, it can be various different things. But how important is it for a person to realize that, oh, they may make me feel good in several different areas, but deep down inside they may be toxic? How important is it for a person to realize that and then sever the tie?
Oh, that's wow. Detaching from a person's presence. You hear people refer to things as soul ties. You probably heard that out there. We have to come out from among them. We got to come out from among those that are enabling us to live the opposite of our best life. You know, I have a quote in the book: you can't live your best life while attached to your worst elements. You got people out here trying to live their best life, but they're attached to their worst elements. It's not gonna work. So you have toxicity here, and you're trying to live your best life, but best life and toxicity don't mesh. That's like oil and water. So I think people have to be honest with themselves, and what causes toxicity to grow and fester is our lack of honesty with ourselves.
Okay.
You know, if I'm not honest about how this person is making me feel, the impact they're having on me, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm going to let it, me sweeping dirt under the rug, eventually I'm going to see that dirt begin to pile up under there. Just because you avoid something doesn't mean that you dealt with it. So a lot of times we try to hide from our thoughts, and we try to sweep things under the proverbial rug, you know?
That's right.
But you can't heal from what you don't face. And sometimes in life we face tests, and every test you run from is a test that you fail. So you have to pass the test. You can't avoid the test or try to cause fear to cause you to run from the test. You have to pass the test to go to that next level, whether it's emotionally, spiritually, mentally. You have to, avoiding the test isn't passing the test. So you running from those thoughts and those emotions and ignoring them, you're not bettering yourself. So
that's so true. As you begin to talk, I was reminded of a quote by my grandmother that said, you can run all over the country, but until you deal with you, it's still gonna be issues. And I think, like you said, it's easier to get up and walk away and not face you. I mean, I think the biggest challenge for everybody is dealing with themselves. It's easier to pass the blame on what somebody else did, but until you start looking in depth at yourself, there's gonna be some issues.
And it can be hard sometimes, because you may look at yourself and be like, it may be depressing sometimes when you're seeing like, wow, this is the real me.
Right.
The real me is ugly. Right. The real me is manipulative.
Right.
The real me is toxic.
Come on.
That's not going to give somebody a happy day, you know? So that's reality. Like, the real you might be ugly. It might be
mean-spirited, controlling,
that's
haughty,
narcissistic,
prideful. This an ugly you. But until, like you said, who said it best? Michael Jackson. Look at the man in the mirror.
Change his way.
There you go. This is real life. I mean, we're just trying to help somebody understand, and we want you to please purchase this book on Amazon. You look up Scott R. Smith, 10 secrets to detaching from toxic people, living your best life, and put this in your library. When you're on the road, when you're in the airport, when you're sitting at work, we want you to have a copy of this.
And there's actually 5 things I didn't get to add to the book. There were 5 questions. It might go in the next book. 5 questions that help someone discern who is toxic. Because sometimes we're like, how do we know? How do we tell who's toxic? And there were actually 5 questions that when I was writing the book that I wrote down. And the first one was, do I experience more peace or stress when the individual's around? The second question was, do they help me grow, or is my growth stunted when I'm around them? I'm talking about spiritual, mental, emotional, financially. Like, is my growth stunted, or do they help me to grow? Is my integrity or self-esteem compromised when they're around? So when you're around this individual, do you feel like your self-esteem's strengthened, or is it weakened? That's the third one. And the fourth question, do they help to strengthen and build me, or do they weaken and tear me down? And the last question to help you discern who is toxic is, do they add constructive or destructive elements to my life? So those 5 questions, if you're honest with each one of those questions, it's going to be real easy to tell. Like, wait, is there more stress when they're around? Are they helping me to grow mentally? The question that people have to ask, what value are the people around me adding to me? Am I the only one adding value to this individual, or is it being reciprocated? Is this a one-way street? So when you ask somebody around you, like, if I said, George, what value are you bringing to me? They can't answer that question. Like, that's a problem. It means they haven't thought about it. They haven't thought about how they're adding to you or strengthening you. Because you don't want people around that's just going to extract and pull from you. Like, what value are you adding to me? Like, this connection has to be intentional. It can't just be you pulling from me. What are we adding to each other? So I think we need to ask that. Like, what are the people in our life around us adding to us? Is it a 2-way street? Is it a 1-way street? Because your time, your energy is just as valuable as anyone else's time and energy. So we have to be honest with them. Like, their time's not is more valuable than my time. Their mental health's not more valuable than my mental health. So why aren't they valuing my mental health like I value their mental health? Why aren't they valuing my time like I value their time? Why are they looking at my mental health and emotional health less important than theirs? No.
And all of those, they tie in, and they're important because I think COVID brought out a lot of things in people that they have not dealt with some 20, 30, 40, 50 years, because you had ample time to sit. Restaurants were closed, people weren't getting together, and so, like Scott said, you start to look over, relationships, jobs, ministry, this, that, and the other. What value is it adding to me? What value am I adding to it? And if the checks and balances don't equate to anything, then it's time to reassess. And I think most people that, even myself, have been in some toxic. I've worked at some toxic places. Even in ministry, some people became toxic. And you just have to reassess where you're going, where you're headed. It doesn't always have to be you getting on Facebook or Instagram making a post about somebody, but it's sometimes actually getting the person together, saying, hey, we started off good, but we've lost direction, and then just moving forward. Because most of us know if you stay in something too long that's not good for you, it ends up in a mess.
Yeah, and the reality is some people are only meant to be in your life for a season.
I saw that quote.
And when you keep them there after that season that they're meant to be there, that relationship spoils. Kind of like food that stays around too long. Even food has a season, right?
That's right.
And after that season, it begins to decay and to spoil. And people that are only supposed to be around for a certain season stayed around longer than they were supposed to, and you're wondering why that situation, that relationship is decaying and spoiling. because it was never supposed to be that long. That was never supposed to stay in the refrigerator that long. It was never supposed to stay around that long. But you decided to try to extend it for whatever reason. And now you got to deal with the decay that comes with keeping something around longer than you should have kept it around.
And that's important. And my next question to Scott is, I'm looking at secret number 6, chapter number 7, detaching from guilt. How many people are walking around this world and they are just consumed with the guilt of their past? You want to talk about that chapter a little bit?
Yeah, this is, sometimes we stay in situations longer than we should stay in situations because of the guilt that someone may try to bring our way. And if it wasn't for the guilt, some of us would have left situations a long time ago. Like, oh my God, if I leave right now, what are they gonna think about me? If I leave right now, what type of person am I? Does this mean I'm giving up on, we're dealing with guilt that's definitely not coming from God. God doesn't guilt you to stay in toxic situations that causes your mental health to decay, that causes you to be suicidal, that causes you to be depressed and ready to give up on life. And that's reality. I put it here. You have to choose to believe in yourself rather than believing in the toxic words that others have spoken about you. So you're gonna believe more in the toxic words they've spoken, or are you gonna believe more in yourself compared to the destructive words that somebody else has spoken into your life? You know, that's the reality. If a person's not seeing me how God sees me, then the way they're seeing me is wrong, because they're not seeing me in a better light than God's seeing me. So if they're seeing me right here in an inferior level, and God is seeing me at a different level, we got an issue. The way you're seeing me is not lining up with the way you should be seeing me. Because the way God sees me takes precedent over the way you're seeing me. So that guilt has a way of keeping us in bondage. I'll say that. Guilt equals bondage. And whenever there's bondage, there's no freedom. So you can't be free and you can't, is it one or the other?
There's no in between. As the word of God says, whom the Son sets free is free indeed. And we have to understand that God needs no receipts. He does not need to go back. Once he truly sets you free, you are truly free indeed. And we have to remain focused on that standpoint that the only way we know to continue to live in freedom is through Jesus Christ. We have these books, we have other things available for our help, but we know at the end of the day that the only person that can truly set us free from our past, from our guilt, from our shame, from our mistakes, is Jesus Christ. Nobody's perfect. When I got saved some years ago, I thought you got baptized and got filled with the Holy Ghost and good to go. I'm like, I'm good. But until you start living life and understanding that you may possibly pick up some toxic traits along the way, then you have to deal with those toxic traits. And for years, I used to blame people. My dad did this. My mom said this. My grandma did this. My ex did that. This person did that. But then I had to face reality and say, no, I'm the one being toxic in these situations. But until you face yourself, you're going to have to read this book every day.
Yeah. It's a sad thing to know that you have toxicity in you and decay in you and still not deal with it. But say that you want to live your best life, but keep all of that mess and that decay in you, knowing that it's not going to allow you to be the best version of yourself. You know, I can't be the best version of myself with the worst elements within me, you know. pride, ego, stubbornness, obstinance, however we put it. There's a lot of stuff that keep us from living our best life. So I've identified the toxicity within me. Now how am I going to deal with it? Or am I just going to ignore it and let it continue to grow and get worse and to fester?
And that's good, because you have to, like he said, with anything, you know, you may say, I want to lose 20, 30 pounds. You have to not only go to the gym, but you have to eat right, drink water, eat your vegetables, and do all the stuff recommended for you to be on that healthy path. And just with anything, you have to work to become better. You have to work at whatever it is to be successful. And so I want to give Scott an opportunity just to tell us again how we can purchase his books, and he'll talk about Your Life Matters as well. And until next time.
I want you to think, you may be sitting there thinking that you don't have any toxic situations in your life, but the reality is you may know someone who's in a toxic situation. So I think in this life, it's not just about us, it's about helping other people. You may have a mom that's in a toxic situation, a co-worker, a business partner. So you may be thinking, no, I'm not in a toxic situation, I'm not toxic. Well, but you know somebody who's struggling with something. So this book could be for them, even if you think that you're beyond this or above this and you're not dealing with this. There's somebody that you know that's struggling with a toxic person in their life, and this could be a way out right here. This could be a seed that helps them get out of their situation. So you can go on Amazon and get the book, or YourLifeMattersInternational.com. YourLifeMattersINTL.com. That's the website. And if you're here in Columbus, I could deliver the book to you personally, sign it, put a special note, and deliver the book to you personally if you're here in the central Ohio area. So I'm just looking for this book to help as many people as possible, because your mental health being impacted, you being impacted spiritually, financially, you can't live your best life that way. So this is a God-inspired book right here. It took prayer. It wasn't rushed and put together. So the book right here, this stuff in this book is going to help people on a spiritual level, on an emotional level. It's going to help them on a dimensional level, basically. Yes. It's not just something that's going to impact you naturally. I think there's a spiritual impact when you detach from somebody. There's another level you can go to in life. So
you don't have to be toxic about doing it either.
Yeah.
You can be happy, you can live in freedom, you can live in peace with moving on. I know a lot of times people, nowadays do this, do that, but if certain things just don't work out, guard yourself, love yourself enough to love the other person, let them go, whether it be a job, some relationship, families, deal with the issue, deal with yourself. As we hear people saying, just heal and understand. I had to take a moment to myself and heal through some things. You can't continue in ministry with the pain of yesterday, because you will not be able to serve, preach, minister effectively. So you have to take the time and read. If you're toxic, get the book. Understand, pray, fast, seek God, and then everything, I believe, will be all right. So I want to thank Scott for coming out. I want to thank our videographer, Steven, who is doing a wonderful job with shooting our Call to Be Different video. So we thank God for him. And we just thank God for you tuning in. Until next time, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we're looking forward to the best that is yet to come in Jesus' name. Thank you so much, and God bless you.